Hey, everybody, and welcome back. We're going to be looking into something kind of unsettling today.
Yeah,
We're talking about bomb threats and swatting incidents,
right.
specifically those that targeted members of the incoming Trump administration.
Mm,
And, it's so easy to get caught up in the political back and forth.
right.
But, we're really talking about, like, people's safety,
Absolutely.
real people, their families, and, just like ours.
It really hits home when you think about it that way.
That does.
When you consider that these threats are aimed at really like the very foundation of, a peaceful transition of power.
Exactly. And we've got some pretty insightful reporting here to help us kind of break down this whole situation.
Yeah.
From the New York Times, we've got some stuff from OPB and even Fox News.
Interesting.
So we're really trying to get like a well-rounded perspective on this.
For sure.
And what we really want to do is unpack what happened,
Yeah.
who was involved, and just try to understand, what this means for our political landscape as a whole.
Yeah, I think what's particularly fascinating about this is the potential ripple effect.
Yeah.
These incidents raise serious questions about what this means for the future of public service, particularly for just everyday people who might be thinking about, getting into politics.
Right.
It's a big question mark.
Yeah, definitely. And so to kind of set the scene a little bit, we're talking about almost a dozen people
Wow.
associated with the incoming Trump administration
Yeah.
who were targeted with these bomb threats
Right.
and these like really terrifying swatting incidents.
Yeah, for those who might not know, swatting basically involves someone making a false report
Yeah.
to emergency services and claiming that there's some kind of serious situation going on,
Right.
often a life-threatening one at a specific location.
Oh, wow.
And so this triggers a rapid response. Often a SWAT team descends upon the location,
Of course.
creates chaos and a lot of fear,
Right.
and, really puts innocent people in danger.
Yeah, it's a lot more than just a prank, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not a joke at all.
Right.
I mean, just think about all the resources that are diverted in these situations.
Right.
The potential for miscommunication and escalation in these really high-stress situations.
Yeah.
And the psychological trauma this inflicts on the individual.
Right.
It's really a calculated act with potentially devastating consequences.
So we're not just talking about something that happens in some far-off place.
Right.
Right? This is happening in people's homes.
Yeah.
Like, imagine being Lori Chavez Dramer. She's the nominee for labor secretary. And just before Thanksgiving, she's getting a bomb threat.
Oh, my God.
Like you're trying to enjoy the holiday with your family, and then suddenly...
Your world is turned upside down.
Exactly.
It's such a striking illustration of how these threats, they really pierce through
Yeah.
the veil of politics.
Right.
And intrude on the personal lives of these individuals and their families.
It's really violating.
It is.
And it really feels like they're trying to send a message that, public service comes at a cost.
Yeah.
And that cost could be, your safety or the safety of your loved ones.
It's a chilling thought.
Like, think about Elise Stefanik, the nominee for UN ambassador.
Right.
Her husband and their young child are driving home.
Oh, wow.
And they get the news that there's a bomb threat at their house.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine the immediate fear, the frantic phone calls, like not knowing if your home is safe?
Absolutely. Just the uncertainty.
It's scary.
It is, and it really highlights how this goes beyond, just political maneuvering.
Yeah.
This is about the raw human experience of fear and vulnerability.
It makes you wonder if this is like the new normal,
Right.
Like, are we entering an era where simply expressing an interest in public service means putting yourself and your family in danger?
That's a question a lot of people are grappling with,
Yeah.
and it's a question we need to address head on.
Right.
Because if these incidents discourage qualified, well-intentioned people from participating in our democracy,
Yeah.
the consequences could be really far-reaching.
And this isn't just hypothetical. We're seeing real people, like Lee Zeldin,
Right.
who is the nominee for Secretary of Energy, being targeted. He received a bomb threat with a pro-Palestinian message.
That raises another layer of complexity to all of this.
It does.
Is this about disrupting the transition, silencing specific voices, or something else entirely?
Right.
We really need to understand the motives to address the problem.
So how are the authorities responding to all of this? And what are the potential consequences if this kind of intimidation just continues?
Those are some of the questions that we're going to explore next. We'll delve into the law enforcement response, the challenges that they face, and the potential long-term impact on our political system.
Okay.
And most importantly, the everyday people who are caught in the middle of it all.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Well, the good news is law enforcement is definitely not taking this lightly.
Right.
We're seeing a pretty coordinated response involving the FBI,
Right.
local police departments, and even in some cases the Capitol Police.
Okay, so they're really like throwing everything they've got at this.
Exactly.
Okay, good. That's reassuring.
Yeah, it takes a lot of resources, a lot of manpower to investigate each and every one of these threats.
Oh, absolutely. And so far, it seems like no devices have actually been found, right?
Thankfully, no.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that the fear and the disruption that these investigations cause just goes away.
Right.
Imagine your home being searched. Your family's entire routine is upended.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
You're living with this anxiety, not knowing if it's really over.
Right. It's got to be so unnerving to go through something like that.
Absolutely.
Like I was reading about the threat against Matt Gaetz's family member.
Right.
He ended up withdrawing as Trump's nominee for Attorney General.
Yeah, I remember that.
And the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office, they released a statement saying they searched the property but didn't find anything. It really highlights how the impact of these threats extends far beyond just the intended target.
Right? It disrupts lives. It creates this climate of fear.
It
erodes that sense of security that I think most of us, take for granted.
Of course. And it makes you wonder, what happens if this keeps escalating?
Right.
What if these people who are responsible start to believe they can get away with it?
That's a chilling thought.
It is.
And that's why it's so important, I think, to understand the wider context here.
Okay.
These bomb threats and swatting incidents, they're not happening in a vacuum.
Right.
They're part of a larger and really disturbing trend of online threats and hate speech.
Yeah.
That seems to be increasingly bleeding into the real world.
So it's like that line between the online world and real life is becoming blurred.
Exactly. People feel emboldened to say and do things online that they would never consider doing face-to-face.
Right. And there's so much debate about how to even address this, right?
There is.
But one thing's for sure, we got to recognize that words have power.
Absolutely.
What starts as an online threat can quickly turn into something much more serious.
Yeah, for sure.
So are we just supposed to, accept this as the new normal?
I hope not.
Is there anything we can do to kind of push back against this wave of intimidation and fear?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
There are no easy answers, but
Okay.
some argue for stricter laws, harsher penalties for online threats,
Right.
while others emphasize, the need for education and promoting a culture of civility and respect.
It sounds like a problem that really needs a multifaceted solution.
It does.
But how do we even begin to, change the hearts and minds of people who are resorting to these kinds of tactics?
It's a daunting task, for sure.
Yeah.
But, I do think there are glimmers of hope.
Huh?
We're seeing individuals who've been targeted speaking out,
Right.
sharing their stories, using their platforms to raise awareness
Right.
about the very real impact of these threats.
It's like they're refusing to be silenced by this.
Exactly. Choosing to fight back with courage and resilience.
And some of them have even taken to social media to share their experiences, like Zeldin Stefanik and Rollins.
Yeah, I've seen some of those posts.
It's incredibly powerful.
It is. By sharing their stories, they're humanizing this issue.
Yeah.
Reminding us that behind the political titles and headlines
Right.
are real people with families, with hopes, with dreams. And they're sending a really powerful message that fear won't win.
I was reading a quote from Stefanik's office that really resonated with me.
Yeah.
They said, "We are incredibly appreciative of the extraordinary dedication of law enforcement officers who keep our communities safe 24/7.
Wow.
Even in the face of this terrifying experience, they're choosing to focus on the positive.
That's amazing.
It's really a testament to their strength and resilience.
It is. And it also highlights another crucial aspect of this conversation.
What's that?
The role of social media.
Right.
It's a platform that can be used to amplify these threats.
Yeah.
But it can also be a tool for raising awareness, fostering dialogue, promoting understanding.
Like a double-edged sword.
It is. On the one hand, it can be a breeding ground for all this hate and vitriol.
Yeah.
But on the other, it can be a force for good.
And that brings us to kind of a crucial question. What role should social media companies play in addressing this?
Right.
Do they have a responsibility to monitor content, remove threats, protect users from harassment?
Right. And how do we balance that responsibility with, the principles of free speech?
Those are tough questions.
They are, and there's no easy consensus.
Right.
But I think it's important that we're asking these questions as we grapple with this new reality where those lines between, the digital world and real life are getting blurrier and blurrier.
Yeah, it's a really complex issue, and there just aren't any easy solutions. But one thing that really struck me was the response from the White House.
Okay.
So President Biden was briefed on the situation.
Okay.
And, despite being on the opposite side of the aisle from many of those who were targeted, he publicly condemned the threats. That's interesting. It seems like he's really trying to send a message that, this kind of behavior just isn't acceptable no matter what party you belong to.
Exactly. It's a reminder that at the end of the day, we're all Americans.
Right.
And we all have a responsibility, to protect the integrity of our democracy and the safety of all citizens.
It's easy to get so wrapped up in all the political battles, but when you see something like this, it really brings it all back home.
Yeah.
That we're all human beings. We all deserve to feel safe and respected.
Absolutely. And I think that's a key takeaway from all of this,
Yeah.
These threats, while directed at specific people, are an attack on all of us. It's an attempt to sow fear and silence dissenting voices and really just undermine our democracy.
Like they're basically saying, if you dare to step into the public arena, you're putting a target on your back.
Exactly.
And that's a scary thought.
It is a dangerous precedent to set, if we let fear and intimidation dictate who can participate in our political process, we all lose.
So where do we even go from here? What can we as individuals do to push back against this kind of behavior and create a more, civil and respectful environment?
That's the challenge before us, and I don't think there are any simple answers.
Right.
But I think it starts with each of us taking responsibility for our own words and actions.
Okay.
We need to reject this kind of politics of hate and division.
Yeah.
And instead really try to embrace empathy, understanding a willingness to listen to people we disagree with.
It's a tall order, especially these days.
It is.
Maybe if we all start with ourselves, just try to be a little kinder, a little more understanding. Maybe we can make a difference.
I agree. It's not about pretending that disagreements don't exist.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we can disagree without resorting to threats or violence.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it seems like the big question we're left with is what kind of society do we want to live in? One where we're ruled by fear, or one where we can have open and honest conversations, even when we disagree?
It's a choice we all have to make, and while the path forward might not be easy, I believe that by choosing courage over fear, compassion over hate, dialogue over division, we can create a better world for everyone.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you with that thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.